everybody. Welcome back to, well, maybe not welcome back because Phil, this is not Mental Health Monday anymore because it's Thursday. This is a continuation of Mental Health Monday that is now on Thursdays once a month, part of Emergence Extras. So, dude, welcome back. So good to talk to you again.
Yeah, man. You too.
We had a bit of a lapse, but our hope is that we're gonna just kind of pick up, where we left off from last time, which was
what do we call it now that is not on Mondays, dude?
I don't know. We just do mental health. I mean, it's part of Emergence Extras, but mental health awareness maybe is what we're, especially with these past couple episodes, we're talking about like demystifying therapy and things like that. And I think if we were to unpack what you and I are both passionate about, it really is part of that, like demystifying mental health care, getting people more open to talking about their feelings, and then providing a little bit of that medical sciencey type terminology and that vernacular, so people can feel equipped, right, if they have to get therapy, or if they want to get therapy, or need to just any type of mental health care, they feel more comfortable accessing it. That's the hope. Like when I talk to you, every time I talk to you, I feel like I get more tools in my toolbox to be able to, if I need to, access mental health care in the future, the tools are there. So we're just going to keep building this toolbox for people, keep having weird rabbit hole conversations, and that's
I've
about
already
it.
got a couple that we didn't talk about beforehand that I just thought of. So yeah.
It's important too, I think, to if anybody's a new viewer, we always look through mental health care and mental health issues through the lens of Jesus. The past few, and probably this one, because it's a little more technical in terms of just like what a therapy appointment looks like, and when you might want to seek out therapy. I don't necessarily know if it would feel, overtly Christian, but that is the basis of where we're coming from is, we believe in Jesus as our Savior. But we also love that God has provided us with different ways to look at things in terms of how we can get care. He's blessed people like Phil with just an amazing mind and heart to care for people. And that's just kind of how we look at it. So having said all that, Phil, last episode, we really kind of went through different types of therapists, right? Different types of doctors. And then we started to unpack what maybe a first appointment would actually look like. But as we usually do, we got a little bogged down in the weeds. So maybe just like you want to rapid fire for me, what if I'm coming in, like what does it look like to just kind of start that first appointment and begin that process of building a relationship with a therapist?
Yeah. So if you were to come in thinking through first appointment, you'd have to fill out some forms first. And so you'd have an intake, very, very general information, anywhere from like height, weight, name, insurance, stuff like that, right?
Very like doctory, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
All your like HIPAA papers and just like
totally doctor. Yeah, chief complaint, and then some basic assessment stuff about history, medical stuff in the family, psychiatrically, or from a psychological standpoint, social milestones, any abuse or trauma that you're aware of.
How far back do you go? I mean, I had met once with not even a therapist, just a holistic doctor. And when we did like history, we did family history all the way back to great grandmother. And then like, she was like, what was your birth like? What do you go that deep, or is it more kind of surface level?
In the initial forms, no, I mean, I'm not asking you to go back to that. Although, if you were aware that like grandma or some of the history about somebody who had severe mental illness, addiction,
Sure.
or something like that, then yeah, I am asking for that. So
you would say it's important to share, like, if I had, let's say, an uncle and a father who were had kind of alcoholic tendencies, it would be important to share that.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Hey,
yeah,
Brian Batesel making a guest appearance on Not Mental Health Monday.
Yeah, and I think from asking things like prenatal, stuff like that, prenatal and birth, for instance, if you were a preemie, or if
Sure.
you know, or if there was a complication in the pregnancy, or if your mom had postpartum depression, you know, that would have affected attachment, you know, you know,
Okay.
early in infancy, and that actually has an effect on wiring. It has an effect on, you know, so that's good to know. Yeah. hmm Um,
Cool.
so so that's some of those forms. You know, there'd be sure a HIPAA form, which is for the client's protection about uh, you know, that this is a confidential environment, except in the cases of suicidality, homicidality, or neglect or abuse of a child. In any case or form, if that's found out, then there's a necessary breach of that confidentiality to deal with you know, the care of the individual who's suicidal, or a 911 call, or like a police call if it's a homicidal, something like
Right.
that,
Right.
or a child protective services if there's you know, neglect or abuse of a child. I so that's that form. That's probably the first thing once we move from the forms into the session that I'm going to cover, because it's probably the only one I'm legally mandated to cover, and that if I don't abide by, you could get me in trouble in terms of my own license, or you know. So just to explain, because it's very important for people to understand what the line is, because plenty of people have had like suicidal thoughts of some form, some nature or form, like even if it's just like, man, I just wish I didn't have to wake up anymore, to, you know, man, you know, if I were dead and you were at my funeral, then you'd see, you know, we've got all sorts of ways that we might knee jerk fantasize, you know, about
Sure.
something like that. And if all you know is that there's a line you could cross, and then I make a phone call and I breach confidentiality and you got to go to like get higher care, you're just going to not probably talk about it. And that's not good. So I will very much specify the line as to which, and even the questions that I'm going to ask you if you start to tell me about some suicidal thoughts of any kind, that, hey, when I get to this part, you know, I'm asking the very important question, you know, that you know, that how you answer it is going to matter, you know, which is usually a question, something like, is there even a 1% chance that after you leave here today, before you see me next time, that you could actually take action on yourself, or something like that, right? The suicidality one is one I usually cover a little bit more extensively. The other two are not as, I usually don't go into as much. So, so yeah, so there's HIPAA form. Then there's a just a simple form. If you've seen another therapist, another psychiatrist, or another professional that you want me to talk to, because of confidentiality, I need permission on paper to speak with them, and you're giving me permission right from the onset if you want me to get some of that history from another professional. Okay.
Cool.
And yeah, there's a service agreement thing where you're signing basically, hey, what's the cancellation policy, what's email policy, what's, you know, that kind of stuff. And then we get into session pretty much. Rates and fees, stuff like that, you're going to get a form. So we sit down in session. I'm going to cover HIPAA, confidentiality, remind you that it's your story to tell, not mine. Here are the exceptions, and let me explain them. Move on from that. What I'll usually tell people is, hey, in this first session, the camera's going to be on me longer than it normally ever will be. Then the camera's going to turn on you, and you know, this is a one-time spiel unless you're confused about something, you know. So then I'll work through things like non-judgment, which is basically, I didn't have your parents, your genes, your social history, your DNA, any of that stuff. How could it would be presumptuous for me to ever say, if I were you, I would have handled it like this, or I would have handled it like that. That's just ignorant. And from the bottom of my heart, it's trying to just to create a real sense of like, you're not being judged here. You can share anything. And I'm not like the professional being like, you're an idiot, you should do it my way, you know? And then, but also, even if I wanted to say, well, in my skin, with my genes and my DNA and my parents and my stuff, you know, how do I think, well, I'd handle that, you know? And even that is like Monday morning quarterbacking, you know, like, it's, you know, you don't know until the rubber meets the road. So it's still presumptuous and pretty ignorant, you know, to go after it like that, and not helpful, you know? So non-judgment stuff, you know, I'd also definitely open up the floor for people to ask any questions or confusions about the forms, about the rates, the you know, any things about finances, things like that. Yeah, and then we move from non-judgment, and, you know, I'm giving you like the really condensed spiel, you know, more condensed spiel. But non-judgment's super important, you know.
Yeah, let's talk about you don't have to talk about it from like, you don't have to imagine you're in a session right now. Just from the standpoint of non-judgment, what is the goal for you as the therapist? And like, that's so important to set up that relationship. Can you explain why?
Yeah. You know what it is, man? Because so many people have these pictures in their heads of like therapy, like not knowing what the heck it is. And they're like, you're sitting on some couch with some therapist behind you with a clipboard. Be like, tell me about your father, and like, why do I have to tell you about my father? Are you going to make me like blame my parents for everything? Like, what is this going to do? And how are you like labeling me and judging me? Like, what are you writing over there? I'll always tell people in the first session that they have permission at any point in time to look at my clipboard and to look what I'm writing, because I'm not writing secrets. And definitely a lot of people would be like, can I see? Let me look,
I've looked,
like,
I've looked before.
Yeah.
You showed me. I'm always like, man, what are you writing?
I know, because I take my little clipboard everywhere. But I'm trying to set up an environment where it is demystifying it, where people can get into my head and get comfortable, where they don't have to wonder what I'm doing over here, where they feel the right to be critical thinkers that question me, that disagree with me, that tell me if, one of the big points that I want to make in that first interaction is how important it is for them to know that, like, one of the highest priorities in there is that if there's a rupture in our connection, or if I've done something to throw you off, maybe you feel like I acted like condescending over something, or maybe I did, maybe you did feel like I acted a little judgy on something, or like, and you're like, who's this guy think he is, and what you're noticing is like, if you don't, or maybe we started a little late and you're really like, that's a disrespect of my time, and you're feeling like, you're kind of frustrated by it. How important it is for us to hopefully communicate about that, and that I'm going to make it a safe environment to communicate about that. Because if we don't fix that rupture, that could disrupt our ability to work together effectively until we do, and where you're going to have a much higher chance of shutting down, turning off, and not utilizing the therapy for everything it's worth.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I assume that one of the biggest challenges for you is you have to, almost from day one, right? There's obviously an investment on both parts to get to know each other and build that relationship, but much more loaded than, say, like a friendship, where from the get-go, you're almost responsible for creating this relationship that has like the level of communication you would see in a really healthy friendship or a healthy marriage, but you need to do it based on a transaction and a passion for doing it. It's kind of interesting.
That is one of the tricky things about therapy, because I find that good therapy, and some people are different about this. Some people, and it can be more effective, or less effective depending upon the person, but some people will create a lot of distance in that relationship, in terms of where you're never going to feel like a friend. You're the professional that I'm seeking for counsel, and for some people that's what they want. That's kind of what it for me, good therapy often does really feel like a friendship. It does really feel, and it is, meaning there's a real connection, a real friendship. The difference between a friendship and therapy, because yeah, you are handing a paycheck to the person, right? Like you're and so, there's a sense of, so do you really even care, or is this, and so it's very important to communicate care. Like, thankfully to me, it's not just a job. It's, I get to do something that I would have been doing anyway in a corner of a room talking to somebody, like, meaning, but I get to, get paid for that. Now, the difference between a friendship and therapy, though, is that when I walk into a room as a counselor, it's all about you, so meaning it's one of those relationships that frees you to not have to feel guilty if you didn't ask me so much about my day. Or if when we're in conversation and we're talking, this is an investment of time to dig in with you and to discover more about you, or to talk about what's going on with you in terms of a problem or hope or difficulty, whatever. And so in most other relationships, you do have to really factor in the reciprocity, the reciprocal nature of that relationship. And it can't always be about like, okay, we're here. All right, so what happened this week, is this, and I can't believe I'm struggling with this, because eventually somebody's going to be like, dude, you just do that all the time. I don't ever talk about myself and you don't even seem to notice, right? Well, in this context, Yes, and good, and that's okay. In fact, the only reason I need to, as a therapist, if you're going to do a good job, you need to make sure that you're getting your needs met outside the room, man. Or else because every human being is needy, and so, if I am not getting those needs met outside the room in my relationship with Jesus and in the body of Christ, or in, other ways, if I'm not being needy somewhere, then that need is going to come out in some way, shape, or form in the therapy, and that's going to be toxic, and so, in the therapy room, I'm there as somebody who's getting his needs met elsewhere, who's there with margin to be able to be present for you. And at times I might self-disclose, I might talk about myself, but really it's for the service of the therapy, or the purpose of what we're doing. It's not because it's like, well, you talk, it's like my turn. It's my turn to talk,
Yeah.
So that's a big, that's a big piece of it. I think, but yes, establishing that safety, establishing non-judgment, helping people to understand, like, this is what's going on in my head. This is the dynamic of our relationship. It is collaborative. I talked about this last time, talked a little bit about, you're in the driver's seat. You've invited me into your car. You can kick me out anytime you want. It's a privilege and not an entitlement that I get to be in the car where you've allowed influence into your life. Like, I don't get any more influence than what you allow. You're the only one in the room with a doctorate on you, because you're the only one on the inside. It's like, you're in the mind and I'm on the outside saying, what do you see? And
Yeah.
and then trying to help from outside the mind. The only one who knows you better than you is God. So I'm the person studying, I'm the student. You're the teacher when it comes to what's happening internally in the terrain. Doesn't mean that I don't know things about what could be dysfunctional, what could be healthy, what could be, and what's going on in there, and can help you in that. But you're the one who knows what it feels like, knows where it hurts, where it doesn't, where it's, you're the one telling me at the end of the day if I'm right or wrong about what I am saying about you.
Right. Yeah, I waffle back and forth on that because I love the way you think about it, and it seems so respectful.
Yes, and it is yes and no. Sometimes I'm going to see something that you're not.
Yeah, well, it's just weird because sometimes, like for me, I feel like if I land in your office, a lot of times it's because I can't work through something anymore on my own, and I need to talk to someone, and it helps me that you're my friend and you kind of intimately know me, but I'm trying to think, like, if we had just a professional relationship where you were my therapist, like, I feel like sometimes I would want to come there and be like, I need you to tell me why, like, or like, am I wrong? Like, or why isn't this working? Or any, like, but I suppose you have those exchanges also, right?
But yeah, because there's a difference between, like, on one hand, the respectful part is that I could be right, but if it's your choice to accept my influence or not, right?
Right.
So I might, and it's your choice whether if I just barrage unsolicited advice at you, and you're like, yo, like, back up. I want to talk right now. There are therapists, there are people that are going to be much more directive. Like, you're here. No, I will tell you how this is going to go. And
we talked about that last time a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's part of, I think, for me, it took a little while. When I was younger, I think I first started seeing a therapist when I was 16. I had some anxiety issues and some depression, which I'm not sure what 16-year-old doesn't wrestle with that a little bit. But, I started seeing a therapist, and it was almost like dating. Like, I had to go through a few before I found it. And I was really thankful that the first woman that I saw kind of gave me that permission, which I don't know if that's, kind of normal, or if there's,
well, it should be,
but she was pretty honest right up front. Like, hey, if this isn't a fit, I can refer some people that might be better for you. But that's like what you're saying. Some people are going to be different. Maybe in some, even clients are different, right? Like there might be clients who want that directive nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, from a personality perspective, from a style perspective, a fit, there are some people. There's a balance though. Like, I think there's a balance between, you know, like, yes, I will almost always tell the client, you know, first session that, like, you know, hey, like, I know I'm like officially assessing you, you're assessing me, and that's okay, you know, and you know, you need to assess if this feels safe for you, feels comfortable for you, feels like, you know, can you trust me, not just from a care perspective, professionally, can I do my job? Can I help you? Right now,
Yeah.
you know, but then there's another side of it where it's kind of like, okay, how are you going to try and trust the process at all? Or are you going to continue to find things to critique so you exit the process? You know?
Sure.
Um,
But
and
that's
so,
also probably why some people end up going to therapy.
yep, totally.
Which is, yeah, that's always frustrating when I think about those situations in my head, because I'm like, man, that's what you need. And it happens a lot when you talk about Jesus with people, right? Like people, when you have friends who are not Christians and they're presenting you problems that you clearly see are solved by the gospel, but they don't see it very clearly, and you can't make that decision for them. You know, you have to just keep loving them, and obviously it's a little different in your professional setting. But I wonder how you. I mean, is it okay? Are we good? Like in terms of first visit, can I ask questions about just like general client relationship stuff, or do you have anything else to talk about?
You know, I think you do bring up a point. If we can come back in a minute to how important it is to not for a therapist to not push his own worldview or his own where he lands or agendas onto a person,
Or
you know,
she.
like and then even there it touches a little bit into, you know, being a Christian and also a licensed clinical, you know, professional, you know, how do you walk in those worlds and prioritize, you know, like what does that look like in terms of being a Christian, but also being respectful clinically, and where that line is, how you go about that.
Well, we did spend quite a bit of time last episode talking about
That's
that, and since we're on a little bit of a tight time frame, I'm gonna.
okay. Yeah. So
Anyways, yeah. I mean, I think just to quickly recap, last time you had said you will offer your opinion if it is solicited, but for you, you know, in that same sense that you're not there, your job isn't there to tell people exactly what to do. You kind of have to listen to people and almost experience, you know, understand from their worldview what they're feeling and what they believe, and
yeah.
but,
I forgot that we went over that.
yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, I think that's a big part of who you are too, as a clinician and as a pastor. You know what I mean? I can't imagine. Actually, I can't imagine it because I worked in the private sector for so long. In a lot of jobs, I was like oftentimes the only Christian. So there's some juggling.
Very quickly, Matt, just for the time crunch, you know, so after I talk about non-judgment, you know, because you wanted to know kind of what's my overall kind of goal, what am I trying to set up there in terms of a sense of a safety.
Well, yes, I do have another question though. I have a quicker question based on what we just talked about. I love the fact that you kind of go about things where you're not just like giving people things to do, but at what point do you, like, given that freedom you give people to like make their own decisions and kind of help them assess them on their own, like where do you hold people accountable?
Mm-hmm. So this
And how do you make that decision to do that? Is it client to client, or do you kind of have a hard rule of the way you go about it?
No. Well, I think there's a balance. So on one hand, I have a
hey, pause for 1 second. I gotta let the UPS man inside the door. Okay. I never thought I'd say this, but I think it was maybe easier to record from my bedroom.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Go.
So on one hand, I'm going to be respectful. I need to recognize it's just a matter of there's actually something called, and we can't get into it, motivational interviewing, where it's a form of therapy or assessment where you're just gauging where the person's at in terms of how you have to meet them, how you have to engage them. You know, the person who's, for instance, in denial doesn't recognize there's a problem versus the person who recognizes the problem but are having trouble initiating change, right? Like you engage them differently. You know, somebody who's in denial and doesn't even see the problem, you can't get going, getting accountable about changing the thing that they're like, that's not even a thing, right? Right? Versus it needs more time for that. If they can't own the fact that there's something that needs to change, they're going to be fighting you on trying to change. Does that make sense?
Why? No, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. So if
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. It
let's
probably
say
makes sense.
let's say I drink, but I think I'm a very safe and healthy drinker, and my wife next to me is kind of like, you get drunk almost every night, and to me, and I'm saying, no, I don't. I have this amount, and it's not a problem for me. And then maybe it's apparent that like this is, even from my opinion, something that like, okay, this is having an impact definitely on your marriage. You guys need to work that out because you disagree. But this is something that you may be in denial about, that it's having more of an impact on you than you're giving it credit for, but you may not want to change, right? So if I start telling you, talking with you about how are you going to stop drinking, and or how are you going to minimize drinking, and you're telling me it's not I'm fine. Why are you talking to me about this? I'm not changing that because it's not a problem for me, right? Then
so if you have, like, let's say you're talking to those two people, you have access to those two people, and the wife is saying this, this person drinks too much. You have like this kind of objective other opinion that it's a problem.
Well, that's their perception.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. But that would probably get too deep if we just keep going with your example.
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, on one hand, I'm going to, so let's say this, there's different models of change, right? Let's say you come into me and you have there's a problem. You're stuck somewhere in your relationship, or you're stuck somewhere personally with something that it's a problem, and you've tried a number of things that make sense to you, but for some reason it persists. You're having trouble changing this thing that's causing damage to your life. Maybe it's your anxiety, maybe it's maybe it is some sort of addiction. I don't know. Maybe it's a fight that you can't stop going in loops on with your spouse. And you keep getting caught in it. Sometimes people in that conversation, I need to assess. There's a sense of what are you labeling as a problem? What are you ready to do? And sometimes, yes, I am helping you. If I think that I see there's a problem and you're not seeing it, I'm going to be having a conversation to you, and I'm going to be honest with you about pointing out what I think is a problem, or what I think is going on, and trying to point that out. But I can't force you to agree with me. Now, how we address that problem, I'm probably going to go on a tier of from surface level solutions down to mid-level solutions, down to deep kind of dealing with past, dealing with intergenerational stuff, dealing with unconscious, kind of stuff in terms of resolving a problem, right? But let's start with behavioral change. Let's start with, if you can change, if this can be quick, if you can just, hey, oh, you're doing that, and that tends to lead to that. Can you not do that? Can you change that with this? Now, chances are you've tried that, right? Chances are you've tried that, but meaning if we just need to interrupt the pattern that keeps leading you to this spot, and even locate the pattern and see and change one of the steps in the pattern, if that resolves the problem, great. I don't need to make this more complicated than it is, and oftentimes people are like, listen, if we don't have to, sometimes people come in and they're like, let's talk about my childhood, my dad, my this and that. They're ready to go, right? Which is, I think, always helpful to have as much information as possible. But sometimes people are like, listen, why are we talking about my dad? Why are we talking about my past? Like, do we really have to do that? Like, I have this problem. I'm here to talk about the problem. Help me solve the problem, and then let me get out of here, and which is fine. Like, that's where people are at. It's fine. Now, sometimes.
Do you ever feel like you have to tell people, like, hey, I think that there might be more to this, and that's why it's worth digging into? Or do you just kind of like let that issue?
Yeah, I'm always, while I can't force you to agree with me, and I'm not going to hold back unless I think it's going to somehow cause like damage, I'm not going to be sugarcoating this. I'm going to tell you what I think, you know, I'm going to tell you what I see. I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to do my best to let you know that like, you have a right to yours too. If there's any confusion about that, and for us to have that honest dialogue is, instead of you just being like, well, he's a professional, I should just shut up, you know, no, let's talk about it and tell me if you think I'm, you know, I'm totally off. And it doesn't mean I'll completely agree with you, but I'm also not just going to judge you and be like, well, I know what's going on and this person has no clue. You know, your voice matters. Okay. So, where were we right before that? So
We were
so
at a
let's
lot of
say
places.
so let's say we're trying to change something with it with a surface level, um, you know, mechanism, right? So like a solution. So theories that come to mind for me are things like, you know, here's where we get into some of that training: strategic theory or cognitive behavioral theory, or um, structural might be more mid-level, but different theories that I might utilize that go a little bit deeper, or say a little bit surface. Solution focused therapy, where surface, okay, hey, let's try to change the pattern. But here's the thing. See, I might know, and I might have told you, hey, I'm getting the sense that this might be a little bit more deep rooted, which might mean I know you might not want to, but we might need to talk about your parents. We might need to talk about kind of things that happened, and explore what went on in childhood. And you might be like, that's hogwash. I don't want to really do that. Like, and just fix this. I'm a high performer at work, or I do this. But then what I do is okay, I will go with you to find out experientially whether those work or not. If they work, I'll celebrate with you. But if it is a deeper root, they won't work. So, so what will happen is I'll entertain that, and we'll do the surface level approach. We'll look at our thinking habits. We'll look at some of those more surface. Was that getting in the way? How you view yourself, view the problem, any maladaptive ways that you're thinking that are creating a problem, you know, or is there anything that you're doing that if you just change the habit and replace it with this, that solves the problem, right? But then what people find is oftentimes it's like, okay, we've done that, and then they get tired of it because they're like, it's not getting to the heart of this. And I say, well, maybe we should try one of those deeper, you know, mid-level things. Are you willing now? Now they might be willing when they weren't willing before, right?
Yeah, which makes sense. People need to exhaust the path of least resistance first, right? A lot
Yep.
of times,
Yep.
I think we're all kind of become victims of that. So that does make sense.
I feel like that was a big concession for you.
No, I you know, I don't know. Maybe I feel like I, I don't know. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So if anybody feels like they're like, yo, I'm not going to talk about, they get to their first couple therapy appointments and they're not going to talk about the big hurts in their life or the big hangups or those things. I'm not going to judge them for not doing that. I feel like we're aware, you know, a lot of times we're like aware that we have those issues. And it's like, if you go to therapy, I think that it's a great safe place. That's the whole thing. You're creating an environment of safety to be able to talk about those things and break them down and get into them. But maybe not everyone has deep-seated issues that they're going to therapy for. Maybe they just need help walking through some.
I think most people are pretty complex. I was thinking about this, man, is that, just if you get into the different reasons people come in, for therapy, I mean.
Oh, hold on. That's perfect, because that's why I feel like if you are unwilling to go deep, it's not that. I just don't want people to simplify themselves. I feel like as humans, the way God created us, the way our minds and our souls are intertwined and all of our experiences build up, it's like crazy to think that someone would be like, that stuff's over there, it's fine, it doesn't have anything to do with it. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like we are so complex and so wonderfully made that you got to dig into it at some point.
Yeah, but some people really walk in different stages, man. And there are people that, I might create a safe environment. And in fact, I think it's important for me to encourage people in this is that, they come in and man, this is more people than you'd think. They've never had an environment where what I'm trying to create is proven true for them. So like, they've opened up and it just has seemed to make it worse almost every time, or being vulnerable has cost them. And so, and so things have had the appearance of being trustworthy, but then you get into it and it's like, I don't know that I can trust this. And so one of the things that I think is important for me to say is like, I'm creating a safe environment. And, I tend to have a good, me, and like, people feel like they can trust me when they first meet me. Like I create
You
that. Or
have
part of
you
how
have a God-given gift.
I suck at other things, but people are like, I can trust you, right? And I actually caution people sometimes, give permission to say, it's okay to let time prove that for you, and to because you might feel like you can trust me, but you know how many times people have felt that way just to be vulnerable and then feel like, crud, man, why? Like, it felt that way, but like, I feel like I've been like, I feel hurt because I was that vulnerable, and this doesn't feel good, in that. Not that it, sometimes progress doesn't feel good, but I mean, like, it wasn't as safe as I thought it was, and I think it's okay even that sometimes people, I'm not telling you it's good to lie to me, but you know how many people, like, they want to put their toe in the water before they put their body in, man. They're not ready to say everything yet. And so they weren't ready. It's not that they were being deceptive. It's like, they don't have, they're not mandated to tell me everything in their life. And so they might tell me some stuff, but they're like, whether they know it or don't know it, they're like, they don't feel ready to go there. And then 6 months later, when I ask them the same question, they're like, actually, this is like going on. And I'm like, and usually my response is, wow, thank you. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for trusting me with that. Hey, what do you think it was before that made you feel like, I can't go there? Um, so
Well, and sometimes it just takes time, right? Just like, like we said, in friendships and relationships and things, time adds, because it's more drops into the investment bucket of trust.
yeah, provided it's showing up as consistent, and it does. It becomes this environment where eventually people have the ability. Maybe they have an off day. Maybe they talk to me, they take out their anger towards me or something like that. And it's like, is
Yeah.
this? Can I disagree with this guy? Maybe they contend with something. How's this guy going to take it? Can I? Is it safe? Or so. And I think, again, one of the things I was going to say before is, why do people come in? Why do they? Why should they? Why? I think there's so many reasons people come in. And I touched on this last time. I wish we were a bit. There's probably things that, we're a country that does great with the ER and not so good with preventative. So if we did better at preventative, we wouldn't have to kind of, cut something off in order to not blow up, But I think sometimes people come in because there's a problem to solve, or a disaster or a crisis. Sometimes people do come in because they feel stuck, in their relationship, stuck in some area of solving something, or I don't know why I do this, but it sabotages relationships, or it messes with my ability to perform at work, to be the best mom, dad, husband, wife, disciple, I can be. Sometimes it's enrichment when people have, the margin or the insurance or whatever it is, and they're able to say, you know what, like, this is a really helpful tool for me to go further, faster, and to explore kind of what are the things, if you think about like track, that are adding seconds to my runtime here. Like, what are those things that are getting in the way of me running the way I could be running? I don't think I see all of them. What are my blind spots? What don't I know? Those are all, reasons, good reasons. So problem to solve, or something to heal, or or an area of enrichment, or an area of discovery, are all good reasons, to come in. But if somebody comes in, they have a very specific, like, hey, I have this problem and I just want to fix this problem, and this happens, right? Like, it's like, you as an artist get this. If somebody comes in, they're like, listen, I know exactly what I want. This is what I want, and can you do this for me? And you're like, dude, you could do so much more with this. Why don't you do this? And they're like, I didn't ask you for that. I'm not looking for that. Can you just do this for me? And if you're like, okay, but they don't even know what they could do with this thing. And what I'm going to do is all this stuff. They might look at me and be like, that's not what I asked for, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens a lot with even just friendships too.
Yeah.
But hey, I think that's a good spot for us to stop, just as I
Yeah.
look at the time, and I think about the ground we covered today. That's really cool stuff. So we're gonna be back again soon, another couple weeks. but Phil and I maybe will record something in the interim too, as like a little bonus. We've got some chatting to do about kind of the future of our mental health awareness partnership. So we'll keep you guys posted about that, but look forward to next week will be Theology Thursday, which is not Theology Thursday. Oh, that could still be Theology Thursday. So cool. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. It's again, you can, if you have any questions, feel free to just shoot them in the Facebook or the YouTube comments, and we try to, kind of answer them as best we can, or email me, matthew.novak@emergencenj.org. And we'll try to get your questions answered on a future episode. Or if you have an idea for an episode, please let us know. But it's great to be back.
It is, man. Again, if anybody watching, you think after watching this, you're thinking about maybe trying counseling, or that might be a need for you. We have a spot on the website. It's emergencenj.org/counseling.
Yep.
Right. Where you can fill out a form and with what you're going through, what's going on, and then a licensed professional counselor, Christian counselor, will within 24 or 48 hours contact you back, get a more thorough sense of what's going on, where you're located, and if it's the best thing for you, give you a few options of counselors that you can reach out to. So
very cool. Thanks for thanks for putting that together. I know I thank you a lot for talking to me about all this stuff, but I know you're just such an integral part of spearheading a lot of the care stuff that goes on here at Emergence, and I'm super appreciative of it. And even if not just for the physical stuff that we have, but the normalization of it, being able to talk about it, being able to be open about it. It's awesome. So thanks, man. And thanks for talking to me. And let's do it again soon. All right.
Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Fist bump.